Hi there, I'm Dr. Julia Sen, and welcome to Ask Me Anything on Parenting. I am so excited to be here with you for the next half an hour and chat about any questions you have about parenting. I am going to invite in my wonderful colleague, Stephanie, in just a moment. She's going to join me to navigate today's session. Now, this is my first live, so bear with me if I am having any difficulties, but okay, hold on a second. There we go. There is Stephanie. Yay, it worked. Or can I hear you?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Perfect, I can hear you. You're really nice and echoey. It's fun. It's like ethereal sounding. Amazing. Okay, good. So as we're waiting for people, hopefully to grab their lunch and show up, let's get started. Do you have any questions yourself, Steph?
I don't have any myself right now, but I've had a couple of people emailing me some questions because they knew that you were doing this. And
Right.
one question is, how do I get my kid to listen?
Yes, the fun question. Yes, how do I get my kid to listen? The interesting part about this, it doesn't matter what age we're talking about to get them to listen, actually. And what I'll explain is the basic and simplest process is if you want your children to listen to you, start to slow down and listen to them. So the idea there is when we pause and actually try to understand what's going on for them, take a little bit of a more curious kind of energy to them and ask what's going on for them, then they're more likely to listen to you. Because overall, what will happen is they're going to feel respected by you. They're going to be seen, they're going to feel seen by you, which will allow them to feel like, you know what? My parents really cool. They understand me. They get me. Sure, I'll listen. There's a lot more ability for a child to feel safe to be able to then connect and listen when we ask them for things. Now, before we go on to that being said, that doesn't mean if you just start hearing them every once in a while that they're suddenly going to become little soldiers. We don't want that. That's not the idea. But the idea would be to give them a sense of, again, connection, give them a sense of safety and security, give them a sense of that they matter in our family, and then they will respond in kind and respect our wishes for them, if that makes sense, right? Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, totally. So having them feel seen, what specifically can a parent do so that their child knows that they're being seen or they feel like they're being seen by the parent?
Totally. Great question. So to see our children means to slow down. And I've done a post on slowing down our parenting because the reality is that we're always in a rush. And so we actually are so task oriented and get caught in the day to day that the child is overlooked, right? It's more about what the child has to do rather than seeing the child himself first and then figuring out what we have to do. So in order for a child to be seen, we have to be conscious of, am I just in this kind of go mode, like let's get things done? Or am I giving myself some permission to slow down and pause for 10 seconds? I'm not even talking about 20-minute, quality time. That's a separate thing. But in the moment, when we are like getting ready for school, for example, which is a huge time of tension where we just need our kids to listen because we're all going to be late. When that process is happening, if we keep going into rush mode, again, they're not going to feel seen. They're not going to feel heard. They're going to kind of shut down or just zone out or do what they're doing and completely ignore you, right? So instead, taking 10 seconds to stop and say, hey, so if I was talking, hey, Steph, I know you're watching TV right now. We've got to start getting ready for school, right? So you've got, 5 more minutes and then we got to get going. But there's a respectful kind of, I know where you're at, and we also still have to get moving. Versus, Stephanie, we got to get going. Come on, let's go. What are you doing? You've been on TV all this time. That urgency, one, I could already feel myself wanting to no, I'm not listening to that. That's overwhelming, right? So we want to really be conscious of sort of calming our system, coming in with that compassionate but clear tone. Hey, I get where you're at, and we need to get moving. This is like the timeline we have. So let's go once we've acknowledged them. Does that make sense?
Totally. That I could have used that advice years and years and years ago. I felt like I was always in that urgency mode of let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And looking back now, I can see definitely how that would have caused my child to feel unseen. So yeah, no, that's great. It's just slowing down is what I'm hearing. Like just slow down.
Yeah, and not like, again, 10 seconds. I get we live in a really, really fast-paced society with a lot of demands, and we do need to get to work on time. We do need to get them to school on time. Like, these are realities, and the slight slowing down makes huge differences. So I invite everybody who's going to watch this recording, later or who's on live to really do an experiment, right? Take the next 3 days when they're going to school, when you're getting ready for work, and take a pause to kind of really go, okay, where is my child at first? Let them know, hey, I see you're watching TV. Hey, I know you don't feel like getting ready right now, right? And we need to get going. So pause, give them acknowledgement, then say the facts, and see if there's any change after a few days. Right? And I say a few days because, look, our child's not used to us doing that. So the first couple times we do it, they may actually ignore it, not realize that we paused and we're doing this. So we want to give ourselves a little bit of time to be consistent and then have the child notice. And if they still haven't noticed, I will say, so the older the child, the less likely they're going to notice because they got used to a certain dynamic. The older the child, I would start telling them, hey, I'm going to do something different. Right? So if you find that you're not actually getting anywhere with them, say, I've been trying something different. Have you noticed? And if they say no, say, oh, this is what I've been trying. And I really want to see you. And I realize I've been ignoring you, and I've been missing that. I've been so task oriented. And I'm changing that up because that wasn't okay. But I was in a rush. So I understand why I did it. I'm slowing down now and I'm trying this out. So can you work with me here? Because I'm really trying. And then we try again. Does that make sense?
Totally. I love that. I love that. It sounds like it's very much just shifting out of that automatic knee-jerk reaction patterning that we've all become so used to just being, and consciously stopping and pausing and really thinking about what's going on. And then, yeah, no, that's great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I see that Jules May 22 has joined. Did you have any questions? If you did, type it into the chat, and I would love to answer. And while you're thinking, Steph, is there any more questions that were emailed to you?
Yes. Yep. So another question I have is, why is my kid having so many meltdowns?
Right. Yes. So there could be obviously so many reasons for that. Some could simply be physiological. So there's not enough sleep. They're not getting food at the right times, these sorts of ideas, because that can be very challenging to get those routines in place. So look at that first. That's just the physiological aspects of, is my child just having like a glucose crash kind of idea, right? Are they missing sleep? These are the key elements to look at first. If you're like, no, their sleep was pretty good, and they have eaten, they've had their snacks, and they're pretty good that way, and they just keep still having meltdowns, we want to then shift into looking at who that child is in terms of a bit of their personality, right? Are they kids who get easily overstimulated and overwhelmed, and then they feel sort of fried inside, right? So a slightly more on the scale of introversion, extroversion, maybe a slightly more introverted child may be feeling like, wow, we just did so much and I can't take it anymore, and completely shut down. On the other side of the coin, are they not getting enough interaction? Are they not feeling connected maybe to us, right? Because we're in a rush or we're doing so much, and so they're melting down because they're actually missing what they need. So in my view of the introversion extroversion scale, it's a scale, so it's not like pure or anything. Those who are on the slightly more extroverted side need that connection time pretty regularly. And if they're not getting it, then the system starts to shut down, and then the meltdown occurs. right?
Mhm.
So the gas tank is empty. But if we're on the introverted side, it's almost like they need space, right? If they need some quality time from a parent or someone, it's just sort of be a quiet time with them, like just connection through cuddles or something like that, if that. So think about who your child is more. Um, you'll start to notice this by about age 3 up kind of idea. Before that, it's a little more challenging. But once they're, into school age years, then you'll be able to get a sense of that. So the best example I can give you is if you feel like let's say your child went to school and then comes back and just wants to not talk. Right, this happened to me, so I'm talking about this one. So my daughter was in grade 7. She went to school. She is highly introverted. I wasn't really thinking about that at the time. And then what happened was she got into the car, and I had gone out of my way to come and pick her up that day. So she got in the car, and I got nothing, not even a hello. And so I did the old school kind of, you can't even say hi, right? And then what she very, very like surprisingly, she sort of turned around and she looked at me, and she's like, "Are you kidding?" And I could have gone into, "Don't speak to your mother like that," or that, but instead I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I was surprised. And she said, "I've just spent the whole day at school participating and engaging and doing all that. If I can't be quiet with you, who am I supposed to be quiet with?" And I was floored. I'm like, wow, that is a really good point. Right? So after that, every time I picked her up, I was just quiet, and we had this agreement. And I would say hi because I do, and if she did, she did. If she didn't, she didn't. We understood. And then when she was replenished, she would show up, and we would have nice conversations and that kind of thing. But it wasn't on my timeline, right? So these are the kinds of things that are helpful to understand our child, so that we don't judge them or make them feel like they're not good enough because they're not doing what we think are even polite things, right? Like, think about what I just said. All I was asking for was a hello. That seems reasonable. However, I wasn't thinking about her. And again, if she can't be safe with me, who can she be safe with, right? So that's the key to that piece there.
Yeah, that's so like just the like that comment that she made, that is yeah, I just went when she said that. Yeah, no, that's amazing. Who if they can't be quiet and be, in their own little world with you, then when can they do it? Yeah, totally. So how can a parent if a parent wants to know where their child sits on the introversion extroversion scale, how can is there a tool? Is there a questionnaire? Like, how can they find out where their child sort of sits on that?
Totally. Yeah, there's tons of personality questionnaires out there. I'm not going to really particularly advocate for one or another. You can play with it. It's harder for younger children, though. So really, you can start with yourself, and then kind of become aware of how they're being. Are they more similar to you? Are they different from you? Are they like your partner if you have one? What are the signs that they're showing that are similar to the adults? So you get a sense of it. But there aren't any that I know of that are for children specifically. So it's really just getting to know your child and experimenting a bit, right? Like I said, I didn't realize she was as introverted as she was until she made that statement. So, but I was just changing my parenting at that time as well, right? So it was all learning and yeah, shifting slowly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. No questions have come up in the chat so far, but that's okay because we did have a ton that were emailed in. The next question is, I'm told my child is disruptive at school. What do I do with that?
So the child was told at school by like the teachers or whoever that they're being.
The parent was told that their child is disruptive in class.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So right off the bat, as a parent, most of us go into that kind of shame kind of state or embarrassed state, right? Oh no, what is my kid doing? And it's like they represent us, right? That's how we feel. The reality is, and this is a bit more philosophical, but the reality is that our children aren't us, they're not ours, they're just another human being that we've had the privilege of guiding, you know. So in a situation like this, the first step is to actually soothe ourselves for a moment first before entering into how we're going to handle that. Because if I'm going in feeling embarrassed, it's not going to go well, right? It's not going to go well with my conversation with the teacher. It's not going to go well with my conversation with my child, right? Because we're going in with fear, defensiveness, and that ends up, you know, never ending well. So the first step is have compassion. That's hard to hear, right, for ourselves, and know that it's not a personal hit at, you know, you as a parent. You're not doing anything wrong. Kids are dysregulated all the time. It's okay, right? So we want to really just take a breath, slow ourselves down. I posted recently on this actually to sort of lower your shoulders and do some deep breaths and connect with yourself to kind of take that permission to pause, soothe, and then come into, you know, trying to hear and sit with the child and say, hey, I hear this is what's happening at school, right? You know, do you know what was going on for you? So the key to this is giving the child the benefit of the doubt. I want you to find out, you to be like the detective, to kind of be like, what could be going on here, right? I know my kid isn't a disruptive kid, and even if they are at home, like quite dysregulated, as a human, they're not bad people, right? Like we have to remember that part, and then shift into what could be going on. What was going on? I don't know, right? You know, I don't know what was going on, and they could be going into a bit of shame there. So just say, you know what, it's all good. I love you. You're good, right? I want to just know what was happening so we can help because the teacher's concerned, right? You know, that you broke that toy or whatever might have happened. So then we start to together discover what could have been happening for them. That's really the key to making the change. And then you can go into the teacher and say, hey, you know what? He was having a hard time because, or they were having a hard time because of X, Y, or Z. I had a chat with them and this is what they said, right? So that's one. If you got nothing, like you couldn't get anything out of the child, then you can definitely talk to the teacher again, lowering your defenses and opening up into, can you help me understand what he's doing, you know, so that I can figure it out, because I don't know why I keep saying he, but they're doing, so that I can figure out what is going on and try to help with the process. So again, we're going in as detective versus going in as, oh no, what is wrong with this kid? Or, oh no, or how could this teacher say that about my kid? Like, we don't want any, like that. Those are the natural responses that we get. We want to, again, soothe and calm ourselves first, then shift into detective mode, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And what I'm hearing from your answers too today is that parenting, a lot of parenting really is, a big piece of it is self-care as the parent. It's not just, you know, trying to fix your kid or, you know, figure out what's going on with them, but it's also about you as the parent and how you're taking care of yourself and the kinds of things that are coming up for you when something is happening with your kid. Is there anything else that you can sort of speak to with regards to that?
Yeah, that's critical, Steph. So yeah, thank you for for saying that. You know, like my motto, or you know, a mantra for parents that I work with is like, when I'm well, they're well. And that's all there is to it. When I'm well, they're well. So they are so attuned to us. All children have this acute and beautiful intuitive sensitivity within them. And so when we're frazzled, when we're upset, when we're withdrawn, whatever that might be, they get very frazzled. So I'm not saying you can't be any of those things. Of course, you're going to be. Communicate that to the child, though. Hey, I'm having a hard day today. I'm not feeling very well. I feel kind of down, or I'm feeling a little bit, you know, anxious today. I'm just going to take a few minutes, right? And I'm just going to go and maybe do some breathing or maybe some movement we talked about, right? You know, Steph, you're all about movement. So, yeah, like really just opening and being kind to our system, communicating that to the child so they're not confused as to why you're feeling those things or taking them personally. and then doing what we need to do for ourselves so that we can come back and truly be present and connected with our child and navigate these, big emotions that many, many kids have. Right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you just said communicate how your experience with your child. Because I know, like, my own childhood, that was never communicated to me. So anything that happened, and naturally probably with kids, we feel it and sense it, and then it's almost like we internalize it and think, I did something wrong, it's because of me, I'm bad, or whatever. And unless the child knows that that's not the case, they're going to internalize that and carry that with them.
Totally.
Yeah, communication.
Totally.
Definitely.
And I just want to say that, it's really important for us if we feel like, oh no, like I've definitely not communicated that, and now my kid probably is internalized that. The beautiful part about us as parents is that we, and any caregivers who have an influence on our children, we have the power to repair it. Right? So I don't care if it was 2 years ago and you're like, oh, wow, I'm remembering now that I did that. I was really off, and the child probably internalized it. Go back and say, hey, do you remember 2 years ago when X happened? Play out the scene a little bit, and they may remember, they may not. I didn't mean to do that, right? That wasn't my intention. I really needed to communicate that to you. I'm sorry if you felt X, Y, or Z, right? And the child is so quick to forgive when we own our stuff, right? It just kind of melts away. And I remember actually one time I was out with my daughter, and I can't remember what the circumstances were, but somehow I rolled my eyes at something. And it wasn't anything that she said, but she thought it was. And I noticed her kind of shut down a little bit. And that was something I just slowly started to recognize with her, is that when she shuts down, there's like a certain movement of her eyes. And so I noticed that. So later I'm like, hey, did something happen? Right? Because you look like you sort of shut down. And she said, yeah, you rolled your eyes at me. And I was like, what? I rolled my eyes at you? Like, I did, and she's like, told me when. I'm like, oh my, that was something else totally. I don't even know what I was like. It was not about you. I'm so sorry that you thought that, right? We're good. And she immediately started just crying and crying in relief, right? So these are the things that the repair can happen at any time. And that's the beauty of our relationship with them, that once we own our stuff, we can repair anything with our children. And yeah, that is the power. So I like to use that power for good, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest things I learned from you, actually, is about repair. Because I didn't realize how incredibly intuitive our kids are, how they pick up on your energy, your behavior. Just, they pick up on everything.
Totally. Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I see Juan has joined. Hey, Juan. So yeah, and Heather, and I see some others. That's good. So and talking about sleep. All right, beautiful. Thank you, everybody, for coming. If you have any specific questions you want to ask over the next 7 minutes, please type it into, I guess it's in the comments or the chat. I think there's a question mark there. That's where we do it. This is my first Instagram live. So please put any questions you might have. Otherwise, Stephanie has the emailed questions that were sent to us for today's event as well. Any more questions, Steph, from your side?
I do. I have one more question. And it says, I don't want to yell at my kids, but it's so automatic, and then I end up feeling awful. How do I handle this?
Yeah, so common, right? So common. I mean, who hasn't done that? Like it's going to happen. We are human, right? So there's two parts of that. One, back to that repair piece. We can always go back and acknowledge, hey, that wasn't okay, how that happened, right? The way I delivered it. And that doesn't mean you're excusing what was going on, right? So if something that they did was upsetting you, we can still come to them and talk about that, but it's the way we delivered it that wasn't helpful. So we want to acknowledge that, hey, you know what? I was not feeling very well. I I lacked sleep, I was irritable, whatever that was, I yelled, that wasn't okay. I'm so sorry for doing it that way. Can we chat about what happened though? Because there's still some things I want to talk about so that we can have a good connected conversation about it rather than just leave them feeling mad or scared of us right after the yell. Now, to be able to stop myself from doing that in the first place, like proactively, so that was the reactive part, is repair, which is fine. But proactively goes back to that self-care piece, right? We have to matter. If I'm not aware of, my sleep cycle, if I'm not aware of what makes me replenished, right, then I'm going to keep having an empty gas tank. And when we're on fumes, it really doesn't lend itself to being able to control or regulate ourselves, right? It doesn't work that easily, unfortunately. So we can have the best of intentions, but if we're not caring for ourselves, we're going to end up back to square one and doing that yelling and getting irritable and all that. So self-care as proactive, daily self-care, guys, which just means, like, if you like breathing, like just slowing your breath down, pausing, doing a 5-second inhale, 5-second exhale, and repeat that 10 times. You're communicating to your brain that all is well, right? That we're safe. So that's like a replenishing activity. If there's things that you like, watch some puppy videos. I'm a big advocate for puppy videos. It brings that oxytocin, that tenderness to our system. That helps to also fill the gas tank and reduce the irritability piece, right? These are all small techniques that we can do on a daily basis, like we brush our teeth. We need to do this mental hygiene piece. And I want, like, if you want to be proactive and not be constantly yelling, then getting consistent with that is the way to go. It is the best way to go, is the consistency, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-care, number one, for sure. No, that's beautiful.
Totally.
Perfect.
Totally. I see a few others have joined. If you guys have any more questions, just throw them into the question mark part on the screen, and I can answer any questions you might have. Otherwise, Steph, did you have any more questions while we wait for anything coming through?
I don't have any more questions that were emailed. What do you, or where do you recommend somebody starts if there's a parent who's new to self-care, they really haven't taken a lot of time for themselves? Is there a resource that you recommend for them to learn, like meditation, or like where is a good starting point for self-care?
Totally. First starting point is to ask yourself what you think will resonate for you the most easily. So meditation, as much as I'm a huge advocate for it, now some people feel like they're going to run the other way when they think of the idea of meditation. So if that doesn't feel like the right self-care for you right now, then don't start with that. Let's start with something that actually resonates and fits for you. So there's not going to be one particular resource that I recommend, but if you are into meditation, I love Ziva Meditation with Emily Fletcher. If you're into breath work and doing breathing, I just started on Samantha Skelly's Pause app, right? Pause breath work. Beautiful breath work app that really, again, takes you and trains you. So there's lots of resources like that. The Calm app has so many great breathing and meditation tools. Now, those are like the calming types of tools. There's also just energizing tools. If that's what replenishes you, then go out. I mean, now that we can again, to some degree, go out with people. If you know you do well when you connect with your friends or others, go out. Go for a walk in nature, right? Connect with an animal. Know yourself. That's really, really the key to where to begin. Because after becoming something that I'm not sure about or I'm resistant, it's an uphill battle. That's right. I want this to be a flowing process for you. I think there's a question. Do you see that, Steph, or is that just me?
I don't see any questions. No.
Okay. Are there? Oh, I hear it here. So Hardy, Hardia says, "Are there any activities to bond with my 12-year-old?" That's fantastic. Yeah. So 12 is that age where they're starting to, want to explore out in the world and get to know who they are in the outside world. So it's harder to connect with them at that age if we haven't already been kind of connecting with them. So they're going to probably want to go out more than stay in. So looking at your relationship, giving them permission to go and explore outwardly, safely, obviously, is probably the best way to connect with them, is to let them go and find friendship, let them go and connect, right? Mm-hmm. But if you feel like, you know what, no, they're willing and they want to connect with you, then asking them, right, what are some things that you would love to do? Are there any activities, are there any, you know, things that I don't know about that you want to share with me? So I remember when my daughter was 12 and I think TikTok was there. I think it was TikTok. Anyway, she kept watching, you know, silly videos on TikTok, and I wasn't really my thing at the time. And but I realized that she just spent so much time doing it that I'm like, okay, maybe I should watch some of them with her. So I'm like, hey, can I watch some of those with you? And she's like, yeah, okay, sure. So then she just showed them to me, and we just laughed because she was just watching some funny dog videos or something at the time. And so we watched it. Was it my favorite thing to do at the time? No, but I'm like, you know what, if she's interested in it, then I'm going to try to be interested in it. And that's the key. Now, that being said, crafts are not my thing. So when the kids wanted me to join them in crafts, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I know I can't. I don't know. It's not mine. But these are things that we could do, and we found things that matched for both of us.
I love that.
Hopefully that makes sense for you. Excellent. Yeah, we have a few others who have joined. We're supposed to be wrapping up, but why don't I go for like 10 more minutes since a few more people have joined in. Do any of the rest of you have any questions? You can put them into the question box. And or Hardy, if you want to continue to ask about that, or if there's any clarification you would like based on what I answered, please type that in and I'll continue to answer yours as well. All right, so while we're waiting for any more questions, Steph, any more from you?
I love that you just talked about really understanding what your child's interests are. Because I don't think that there's enough of that. I feel like in my experience, there has been a lot of, you know, what the parents' interests are or were when they were young, and then the child is kind of guided that way, whether the child kind of really wants to do it or not. So I really, really like that you said that, and it just made me think about in my own parenting experience, you know, like how I can be more open and how I can talk to my daughter and find out, you know, like what is true and meaningful for her. Because at the end of the day, it's about her and her experience, right? And I'm here to guide her, to push her. So that really, I really, really liked that. That really resonated.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And you know what, actually, that feeds right into Maria's question, which is how to help with intrinsic motivation. And that's just it. It's not going to be about what we think they should be motivated to do, right? That's not going to come intrinsically because it's coming from us. So if you really want motivation to start, we want the dopamine to be flowing, right? That's what gives us motivation. And so if let's say they're supposed to be doing homework, right? Which, unless they love the subject, it's likely not going to be an intrinsically motivating process. So you can actually take the space, if you find them resisting homework or something, you could take the space to have them do something that is creative, something that really that they enjoy for like 20 minutes, right? Taking that pause and giving them the space to do something that gives them that dopamine release, brings them into that state of productivity. If they're not, you know, finding something that they can do that they find is creative, gratitude practices do release dopamine. Depending on the age of your child, they may or may not be willing to do this with you. But again, this could be a proactive piece, which is building in a gratitude practice for yourself as a parent, and then role modeling that, inviting them to practice gratitude with you if they want or on their own, but not forcing it. That will slowly, hopefully they'll see you modeling that, and then they'll start to pick that up, and then they'll start doing it. So I did that with Priyana. She was like, no, I'm not doing it, you know, and then I just continued role modeling it. And the next thing I knew, she was journaling and doing a gratitude every night. I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. Right? So it's really, when they see us doing it and they see the benefits, it just slowly starts to seep in. And honestly, again, I wasn't pushing her. I was role modeling.
Mm.
And that's really important. I invited her to it, so I mentioned it. And then I role modeled it. And then she just on her own, suddenly she was doing it. Right.
Mm.
And that will, again, bring the dopamine release, which will then bring more motivation to the table, if that makes sense.
I love that. I love that. The questions aren't actually popping up for me, so I keep going in and checking them every time I'm like playing around here.
Totally.
I've always been somebody, like with my daughter too, I'm always commenting like, oh, I love the smell of the fresh air, or like she'll see me stop and do little things like that. And now that you just said that, we were on a drive a week ago. We were off to competition, and she's in the back seat, and all I hear her comment on is how beautiful and juicy the green grass looks. Where we, I was like,
good.
says that, but yes, that's amazing, right? Like at that age, to stop and notice something so natural and to appreciate it on our own, I was like, it just,
exactly.
Nice to hear, and it's nice to see them stop and be able to take those things in. Yeah.
Totally. So all from your role modeling, and that's just it, right? When we push them to do anything, they'll resist, right? It's just, force doesn't really work. It's the powerful presence of ourselves that allows actually movement for our children. And Maria made a comment back saying that she loves to color, which is awesome. So Maria, yeah, definitely. If you're finding you're like, just, oh my gosh, please do your homework, or whatever it is you're wanting her to be motivated to do, take a pause, sit down with her. Hey, why don't we color? Or why don't you go color? Right? Depending on if she wants to connect with you or if she wants to do it on her own. And give her 20 minutes, just go color, go do your thing. Right? And then we'll look at homework. So it gives them a chance to, again, that's her downtime. That's going to be her way of connecting with herself, which is so important, right? Most of us have kind of got disconnected from ourselves. And so this way we're allowing our children to stay connected to who they are and their truth, and then do all the tasky things that we have to do because we do. So, yeah.
So important. Yeah. Number one, connecting with yourself and having your kids connect with yourself so that they know who they are as they grow up. And just, again, thinking back to my own childhood, I did not do a lot of that. So when I became an adult, I had no clue who I was, what I liked, no hobbies, none of that stuff natural for me. So it's so important to raise them to really go inside and find who they are and what lights them up, and then just support them in that, support them in whatever that is.
Exactly. But again, I'm going to bring it right back to the beginning of self-care. Until we do that for us, we're not going to be able to support them in that. It's just, we're human, right? We have to be able to take care of ourselves, learn how to do that, because it's not just natural, unfortunately. Learn how to do that, learn what resonates for us, and then we can really be present for our kids the way they need, so we can slow down and hear them, and then get on all the daily tasks and everything else. So yeah, it's sort of a big reset, right? It is what I see parenting as. It's a skill to be learned. It is not something we're supposed to know how to do. It is, it is something to invest in, right? As a human, so that we can really take the time to connect with our kids and then change this next generation to really be confident people, right? So I'm just noticing the time. So we were supposed to go till 12:30, went a little longer because people had joined a little later, which was awesome. Thank you everybody for showing up and for coming and for your questions. And this will be, I think, this is my first Instagram live, so I believe I'll be able to post this as well, the recording. So you can review it again later. If you joined a little late, you can review the beginning of it once you figure out how to do that. So I will be here for every Friday from noon to 12:30 in June. So the next three Fridays, I will be here with you to, again, ask me anything on parenting. Thank you. Thanks, Maria. and everybody else. All right. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.